Throughout history, one thing that's popped up in almost every culture is a split between males and females. But it doesn't always show up the same. I mean, just take a look at the Igbo people of Nigeria and modern Americans, for example. In Igbo culture, the man is just about always the head of his family, which is made up of him, his wife or wives, and each wife's children. While he gets to live a public life and take jobs like farming, wrestling, and fighting in wars, his wives are almost exclusively domestic. They're just supposed to bear him children and then take care of them and cook. And these gender roles often extend to the children too, especially when they're older. Boys are supposed to act macho like their dads, doing manly chores like splitting wood, while the girls follow in their mom's footsteps and learn to cook. In American culture though, familial gender roles vary all the time. How could they be the same if some families consist of a man and a woman, but others have a single parent or two of the same gender? So every household is different. Even when just looking at two-parent families. In some, there's a male superiority, some are ruled by women, and in some, both parents share responsibilities equally. American families are about as uniform as a pack of Skittles. Sure, there are similarities. Almost all families from both cultures have a division of labor between genders, often with one parent working and one doing more domestic jobs. And even though America prides itself on being progressive and equal, the average woman still finds her family status to be slightly lower than her male counterparts, kind of like the subordinate status of women in Igbo families. The women in both cultures are often the domestically active ones, while the men get to rule the family and work. And finally, the gender roles of the family tend not to be quite as distinct in the children as in the parents, especially when they're younger. But there are some really big differences between the two. Most importantly, gender roles in Igbo culture are much more constant among various families, while in America, just about every family has a different take on gender responsibilities. In some American families, women actually rule the household or are the primary wage earner. In some, it's the men. In others, it's both. There are no collectively agreed upon ideas of what men and women should do in the family. But in Igbo culture, nearly every family has a similar perspective on gender roles, where the males are expected to farm, fight, and lead public lives, while the women mostly stay at home, cook, and take care of the family. Many Igbos can't even imagine women doing their jobs of farming or wrestling or fighting. For them, a woman taking a man's role is as absurd as a mouse chasing a cat, or Beyoncé not winning a Grammy for Album of the Year. These different approaches to familial gender roles actually say a lot about the cultures that have them. The Igbo, with their strong uniformity, show a belief in a so-called right way of doing things, and a focus on the traditional. Their culture has certain unspoken and unalterable rules that each family has to follow, which is why almost every single one has the same view on gender roles. In contrast, a lot of contemporary Americans embrace variation a lot more willingly. Just look at the overall diversity of their familial gender roles when compared to Igbo culture, and you won't see the same type of deeply rooted customs in every single household. Basically, the consistency of Igbo familial gender responsibilities and the inconsistency of American ones just serve to demonstrate the contrast between the Igbo emphasis on tradition and the American belief in variation. And what this means is, if you're an Igbo who wants to have a female-dominated family, you might want to consider moving to America.